Should let me know. So when you first log in to Clarity and you guys are going to enter a access point, after today, you will have an additional agency to enter data into the system. So we can translate this kind of from that EDA in service point, but we're not EDAing into a program as much as we are EDAing into an agency. For us to be able to share our information and manage everything in that community queue, we created One by One as our coordinated entry agency. So when you log in, first things first, switch to your One by One agency. Got our One by One here. Your recent client searches will be the same client searches. Actually, no, this is different, I think. So you'll see them here. Obviously, you guys have come across, I'm sure, in the last couple of weeks looking in the new system, who are all these people, right? There's a lot of clients that have not set, there's duplicates. When we merged or imported all of our data, all of the crap came with it. I'm just being transparent. All of this stuff that is not valid, all those clients that you guys see where there's, you just know that there's no information there. Like this guy, nothing's here, right? And last updated, you can look at that too to see which client you can use. Just ignore the clients that have no value. They will be gone in a couple weeks, hopefully less than a month, and search for your client that you're going to be using. If we need to create a client to complete an access point, I have always said since the dawn of access points that if we are creating a client to create an access point, we need to, hammer in that diversion conversation unless, there is documentation that this client's been in the woods for 2 years or whatever that looks like, right? But if we got a brand new client, I'm not telling you not to create an access point for them, not to create a client profile for them, but that diversion conversation needs to be hammered in that this client is, if we're creating a new client, it's likely because they're new to the system, right? Please correct me if I'm wrong, but typically when clients are coming in for an access point, they've already tried emergency shelter, they've already been on the streets for a minute, maybe they've stayed at the hotbeds, they've been created. But I digress. You create that client if need be, but otherwise we're going to enroll Brandon. We're just going to use our same old guy, Brandon Test. Get him enrolled to his access point for the 14th million time, right? What I want you guys to do though, when you look at the client's history, because I'm sure, again, none of us are new at doing our access points. Kim, I believe I had trained you a little bit before, but we do want to make sure that the client does not have an active access point. You will see it over here on the right. You'll see all of the active programs. And if it says One by One coordinated entry, we do not complete a new access point. You can add an update. You can update the client's assessment, but we do not add a new one, right? I will walk you through what that looks like after we create Brandon's access point. If you wanted to search for it in his history, maybe you don't see it here, but we search for it. You see all this, but you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Let's just put our imagination hats on, and this is not real, right? There's no active programs here. There's nothing here. We know that the client needs a coordinated entry access point. So when we go to our programs tab, the only program that you have available under your One by One is One by One, right? That shows you that you're in the right program. So if I was still in Suncoast, I would only see my Suncoast projects. I'm in One by One, the agency up here. So I know that this is the program that I am enrolling my client in. All right. We have 18 clients enrolled in this program. It's kind of terrifying. Hopefully Brandon's working on that because this is the live site, I believe. Yes, this is the live site. So sure what that means. But we're going to enroll regardless, right? We select enroll. If you have another household member, guys, just your head of household. You do not have to include additional household members, just like in Service Point, just your head of household. We're going to select enroll. If we're collecting information, hang on one second. Okay. If we're collecting information during that blackout period, we need to make sure that we are reflecting our project start date as such. Because if this client had gotten their access point done in May 23rd, that access point entry date is a factor in their prioritization. So do keep that in mind. When we're looking at household type, this is how we're going to identify to the system their household type, obviously, but that's what we're doing. So we need to make sure, even though we've only included Brandon as he was the head of household, we only include the one head of household. If he has his family with him, we need to include that. If it's his husband and wife, we need to identify it as that. Or if the client's an individual, identify as such. We do need to make sure that we have that household type set. County of residence, we're going to want to make sure that we are identifying if the client is, in Sarasota, they're living in Sarasota, their past residence is there, where they receive their services at is there. This is specific, honestly, because there are grants that only, like Lynn at Manatee County, you guys, that Manatee County ESG grant, you have to be a Manatee County resident, right? You have to show residency in Manatee County. And also when we're filtering clients to go to those type grants, because Sarasota County has one, Manatee County has one. When Cheryl's filtering her list, we need to be accurate in that eligibility for that client. So we need to make sure that we're identifying that. You can say, obviously this is for Pasco peeps, but you can say other if they're coming from out of town. But just note that if they are a Sarasota County resident and they've been in Sarasota County for 90 days, and likewise Manatee, we need to reflect that as such. If they haven't been here in Sarasota or Manatee County for more than 90 days, their county of residence needs to be other, because there are residency requirements for many things like shelter. You guys are all familiar with the different requirements of your agencies, of your grants, right? And some provide, services for people under the zip code or this place or whatever county. So we must be very intentional when we are asking these questions, right? Current address and location, y'all, this is how we are collecting. There wasn't a way in Clarity for us to collect this contact and location information in the client's enrollment. So please, this is what anything you collect here will be put on the client's profile page. If we have a location for the client, maybe that they are in a certain location, like you can pin, maybe this client is at Centennial Park often. I'm going to pin that location so that people know if and when this client's referral goes through and they get accepted, that this client's been spotted at Centennial. This is where he considers his, location or current address. So please drop that pin, get an idea where do you frequent? If you were to win the lottery and we wanted to find you to get your winning lottery ticket, where could we go? Where are we, right? If you have, I'm sure anybody that's been, provided a referral for a client, It is incredibly difficult and time consuming trying to find that client. So let's do our due diligence in the forefront. You guys, I've long referred to you guys as gatekeepers, right? You're telling that client's story. So it should be very intentional. It should be very clear when you are reporting this information because it's so impactful to the client's life. It's so impactful to how the client is connected and engaged with. If there's no contact information, no general idea of where their whereabouts are, then you've got, service providers kind of doing the best they can with what they have. So let's give them the best that we can for the client, right? Head of household cell phone number. Even if the client's cell phone doesn't have any minutes, right? They might have a cell phone with you and they're like, I don't have any minutes. Okay, but what is it in case you have, you have your phone turned back down? I've had the same cell phone, whether I paid the bill or not, whether it's been active the entire time. I've had the same number for, 20 years, but clients, same thing, even if they're like, oh, my cell phone isn't on right now, we're going to record that information. So maybe when their referral comes up, we can use that. Same thing with email address, please, does the client have an email address? Our agencies are trained to contact the client by every means necessary, painting out that picture. Let me see what I got. Painting that picture of, if you were to win the lottery, how could we find you? If the client doesn't have an active cell phone, but they have the cell phone, encourage them to download and get the WhatsApp. Help walk them through that. If they get that WhatsApp application, they'll be able to message with other family members, other people, so long as they're connected to Wi-Fi. They can go to McDonald's, go to the library, they can go anywhere. Encourage that client to download that up and set up that account so that we can get a secondary number, right? It's just another number for our providers to use to get in contact and provide services to the client. This emergency contact phone number, it will also have emergency relationship or name or relationship. I'm not sure why that's not corrected yet, but I will find out. So you will see emergency contact name / relationship and then emergency contact phone number for that same reason. If you were to win the lottery tomorrow, who can we call? Who can we call that maybe they don't have a lasting relationship, but I'm sure, if my sister was literally homeless, I would get that message to her somehow. Maybe they have a Facebook Messenger. I don't know, but it's just taking every effort to get this information into the system. So prior living situation and type of residence, what question are we asking? Everybody type in the chat. What question are we asking when we say type of residence? Type in the chat now. Ooh, who's first? Jessica, you're a quick typer. Thank you, Jordan. Amari, all right, everybody. Thank you, Sandra, Susan. All right, guys, we got it. We know what we're doing, right? We know how to ask these questions. Tell the story. Where were they? Were they in a place not meant for habitation? Maybe they were sleeping, behind the, in the woods behind the gas station. And how long have you been there? None of us are spring chickens, right? We know how to have these stories. We knew how to tell this client's story. We know what we're looking for. I'm sure many of us have been through the arduous task of correcting data consistency. I can go on my soapbox. I would prefer not to this afternoon. I want to make this as painless as possible, but just knowing that how we tell the client's story impacts this. Literally, we're looking at housed, not housed, referral, not referral. We're looking at, is this client new to homelessness? What else can we do, right? Is this client been homeless for a real long time? And this is the first time the client's even been in an access point. Are we identifying that? Are we telling this part of the story? You guys know how to do that. I'm not going to drone on, but knowing that inconsistent data, just like that, what I just did. So I was like 4/4/2021. This is the difference between, having a client housed and shooting up at the top of our, maybe not shooting up, but accelerating closer to the top because they've been literally homeless and maybe they've just never gotten an access point, right? We want to make sure that those clients that have that history the longest are getting served first, right? There's a lot that goes into prioritization, but our homeless history is obviously one of those factors. And if everybody has any questions of how do we prioritize? We prioritize off of the client's approximate homeless state started. I'm literally still working. Does that happen to anybody else? I'm clicking buttons in here. All right. We prioritize off of their approximate date homelessness started, their total time, their total number of months homeless, even if this is 2022, but we have long history. We see this client is all over the map, right? We're going to look into that. We're going to make sure that this data is consistent and that this makes sense. But this is something that could also make sense because maybe just recently he was housed with rapid rehousing and then the subsidy ended and then they're back into homelessness, right? We're all looking at that. Tell that client's story. Disabling condition, same thing. You guys have noticed, maybe hopefully you've noticed the inconsistency logic that is in here. Physical disability, nope. This is all self-attestation. Client has HIV or AIDS. Mental health, substance abuse disorder. Again, a lot of clients, they might have an issue being fully transparent about their history with mental health or substance abuse. Maybe they think it'll hurt them rather help them. That's having that conversation with your client that this is just, and I'm sure you guys are all well aware of how to have those conversations. This is just a way for us to get an idea of the troubles that you have been experiencing so we can connect you with the appropriate resources. Nobody's ever going to get, someone's mental health or substance use disorder is not a barrier for housing in our continuum, or it shouldn't be in anyone's continuum. Income from any source, you guys, I encourage you to just open this up to a yes and go through each source of income. And then if the client does not have any income, then we can say no. But I think it's best to open it up rather than, do you have any income? And the client thinks, well, do I have a job? No. Do I get my child's Social Security? Yes. Right? Whatever that looks like. We're going to say Brandon doesn't have any income though. DV survivor. We all know DV knows no gender, knows no race, knows no ethnicity or socioeconomic status. Maybe that's why his most recent experience of homelessness, because he was fleeing his abuser. And that's why he ended up homeless. Currently pregnant, any household member. So Brandon's on his own, or any household members registered sex offenders? No. Are you an active substance abuse user? Brandon had told us earlier that he actively uses alcohol, so we can say yes to that. Again, knowing that this does not bar him entry or create a barrier whatsoever. If anything, it helps him. Does he have a voucher? No. We're going to save and close. We're done with our first part of our assessment. So this is where this stuff needs to get removed. Maybe not. So this is where we're going to collect, we have to collect our current living situation. In our other enrollments in Service Point, this was in that access point. It's very basic, but it is required by HUD. We're just stating where's the client staying tonight and who verified this. And then Pioneer Park, right? Ooh. Be mindful of dates when you guys, because we don't have back date, and I know in my training I keep forgetting to change those dates. All right, so we did that. Now we go into we have our VI SPDATs here. Just to let you guys know, there is a version 3 of our VI SPDAT. We will be working off version 3 starting July 1st, 2022. So this is version 2. Version 3, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. There are quite a few more questions. Oops. Quite a few more questions in the VI SPDAT. So let me see if I can update this. That's not it. All right. Well, you guys will get a copy of it so you can practice. But there's quite a few more questions in it than there was before. It's similar, just different. Here's this, but this looks weird. You guys can have this 25-page document to prepare. But it asks more specific questions like, is anybody in the family a member of the LGBTQ population? Should have questions in here somewhere. Yeah, we got LGBTQ 2+, served in the military. Do you have any pets? Those days can you find all of these places, a safe place to sleep, access to bathroom, access to shower? These are going to all be new questions. These are the same as part 2. I'm not going to go through each one, but just so you guys know, please do your best to collect your access point from the backdating period, from the blackout period, because version 2 will be done June 30th. So you will not, the questions in the version 2 are not going to be here after July 1st. So we will be using a different one. All right. Assessment location, type, and level. We had that same question in our service point. So where am I? I am at Sunquist Partnership. Right there. Type, level, language. Most of them are in person now. Housing, primary language. What does the client speak? They speak English. All right. Does anybody, I'm just going to harp on a few things. Now is your time. Do you have anything that you guys want to talk about with the VI SPDAT? We can go through each and every one of these questions. I'm going to. So does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, any kind of issues where in the past you've had collecting the VI SPDAT? Everybody has a fairly good do you guys ever feel like because I've always been told randomly that people aren't asking the full question, and I want to make sure that everybody is like vowing and promising to ask the full question. All of these words are here for a very intentional reason, right? When we're asking have you stayed in 6 months, have you stayed in a holding cell, jail, or prison, whether that was short-term junk tank or longer stay or anything in between. We're not just asking, have you been to jail? We need to be very intentional when we are asking these questions to our clients. This was one, do you have any legal stuff going on right now? That question does not end there, because the very last part of that question is asking, that do you have any legal stuff right now that may result in being locked up, having to pay fines, or that big one, or that might make it difficult to find a place to rent to live, right? So many of our clients have experienced eviction, and that, is a yes for so many. I tell the clients up front that I have to read the questions just as they are written. Perfect. That's exactly, it's being upfront that if we were, I can send out, how to conduct a VI SPDAT from org code, but it's having that upfront conversation, just how we should deliver it. So let me see if I can don't. Oh, they deleted that file. Of course, the one useful file that's on here. But it's having that upfront conversation and saying like, this is going to be, a lot of questions. Having a standardized script, blah, blah, blah. Only conduct who explicitly consented to participate. Yeah, so we'll go through and answer some of these. This is a big one. Yeah, the client was evicted. He's got that going on. Force you or trick you. This was, I always, one case manager explained to me how he knew of a client, a lot of clients that are long-term homeless or maybe even new to homelessness. When you're new to, any situation, you're going to maybe people please, right? And where there were clients that, regularly took advantage of the new clients, of the new situation. Amanda Rosato was actually sharing some really alarming statistics on women in homelessness. All of us are women on our calls. And it said that she said 97% of women experiencing homelessness have been a victim of a crime while homeless, whether that be assault, sexual assault, theft, harassment, all kinds of. And I think 97%. So when we're talking to our clients and, all of our clients, we should be coming from that trauma-informed place that something had led them to this position. And I hope that everybody, I know a lot of you were on that trauma-informed training. I'm literally just going through these questions. If you guys see any that you want to ask, question on, please let me know. I tell the clients the same thing. Yeah, Lamari, and you guys have been doing this since 2017, right? Well, some of us have, but long enough to know that this is, these questions, and they actually just get more intense in the version 3. So, all right. So if you are going back and creating access point from the blackout period, can everybody, you guys are likely, who is creating access points from the blackout period as soon as they get their license or get their ability to do this? Raise your virtual little hand. Because these questions, I wouldn't imagine that you've been prepared to fill out. Let me see what I got. Nobody, I am, oh, thank you. All right. All right, so let me actually see if I can submit this. Okay, so you guys that are collecting, I'm gonna give you guidance right now. There are these questions in the VI SPDAT version 2 that you're gonna be filling out that you likely did not ask, right? If the client, you would have asked if they're a veteran, obviously. You would have asked, you would know whether they are not a citizen or a legal resident, or maybe you might know that they're undocumented, one or the other. Where they came from, we would have asked this question, what county are you from, right? The city, this region, you will have this information. But when we get down to here, and this is stuff that, you've never been trained to ask, if you don't know the answer, you can say data not collected. You're not going to be dinged. You're not going to be graded against this. You legitimately did not collect that data because it wasn't on the questionnaire that you got. So just tell that part of the story just like you did. I'm even going to say that have you ever been to jail? If in the VI SPDAT the client said that they have, then you can ascertain that yes, they have. They said yes up there, so you know it's yes down here. Prison, you don't know. There's no drop down for that. All right. Allow me a moment, guys. And then prison, no data not collected. All right. All right, insurance. Does the client have insurance? You would have, I don't know if you would have collected that because that wasn't in our, if you know that answer, you can answer it. If not, that's okay. Sorry, I just want to note these while I'm in here. On the regular day, where is the easiest to find you and what time of day is easiest to do that? I love that question. But if you didn't ask it, say, did not ask. It's not a ding against you. It's not your fault. It's just what happened. I'd like to take your picture. May I do so? I don't know why I would need that, you know. We'll have to look at that. All right. So after we finish our VI Spidet, y'all, we have our VI Spidet pre-screen tool. Cool. He's an 8. We kind of thought Brandon was an 8. Y'all, we just referred directly to Community Q. We say, you know, you don't want to make it private. You can add a note here, you know, maybe the client presents at an 8 p.m. notes, high need, high utilizer, right? Anything to help the client, help us better understand the client. Whatever you feel like would be helpful for the, you know, our 1-by-1 project manager and specialist to review and have that information. But up to you, you know, whether you have a note there or not. Send referral, send that bad boy on to Cheryl. Hopefully something different than this happens. All right. Don't know why that did that. So many kinks, y'all. All right. All right, so you would send the referral and canceling this page. Well, cancel the automatic. Well, then why aren't you working? Client pending on Community Q. Boom. So that went through. You'll see that when you've sent the referral. After that, go through, look at the client's history in the COC, see, you know, maybe they need a shelter bed that you can refer them to, whatever the case may be. But when it comes down to the program enrollment, our 1-by-1 coordinated entry, that's it. You don't need to provide any services. You don't need to, you know, I love notes personally. I love notes as well. So if you guys want to send me any love notes, I can always use those. I'm sure all of us can. But in all seriousness, the more notes, the better. If you have information on like very specific contact information, very specific, maybe the client, if you want to add an alert that is helpful to the client, you can add an alert. You can update this contact information. You can review this just to make sure, you know, that we have that client's contact information on their profile page. We have that in let's see, what we added in their enrollment. Talking to each other. It should talk. This should be now filled out because we filled it out in the enrollment. So this is what we'll see when we're in the enrollment. Still some kinks that we're working out here, guys, but you get the gist of it. This should be populated with the information that was captured in the enrollment. You can also populate it here under the client's contact. You can also populate it here under the location. There was a concern that because these contact and location buttons weren't in the client's program enrollment, that they wouldn't get captured, right? It's not in this, it's up here. So that's why we have this information here in the client's enrollment. So we're sure that it gets collected at that first moment in conversation, right? Wow, that was only an hour. But that's what happens when you have a very intuitive system, right? You sent your referrals, that's really, on to the next one. What else can we do? Make sure we switch out of our agency. If I'm, at Salvation Army and I want to enroll the client into one of the street team beds or whatever the case may be. If I'm at Salvation Army Manatee, same thing. I want to make sure that I'm in my right agency when you guys are done with your access point, because you're going to be, in here and you won't see your other programs. Fairly simple, but I want to hear from you guys. How do you feel? What are your thoughts? All right. Well, if with no other thoughts, I mean, let me know what else I can go over with you guys on this. I'm here until 4. You guys don't have to go home, but can I have a copy of this training? Sure. Let me stop recording. Anybody else? I am going now that I have the time. Things are settling down. We will be